What is up, Steelers Nation? Thank you so much for jumping on to another episode of All Steelers Talk. I'm Noah Strackbein, joined always by my man in the corner, producer Nick Belsky. Find us on youtube.com/All Steelers Talker. Subscribe anywhere you get your podcast. The Pittsburgh Steelers, well, it's a victory Monday, and Mike Tomlin, he didn't want to tell us all the ingredients to the hot dog, but he did want to show us that the ingredients to that hot dog, well, they lead to a victory. The Pittsburgh Steelers are 3-0, a 20-10 win over the Los Angeles Chargers, and really a convincing game in the city of Pittsburgh for this home opener. We'll dive into the 20-10 win. Justin Fields, is he the guy? Sure as hell looks like he might be. The Steelers have not one, but two wide receivers that probably deserve more playing time. And if we're going to start talking about how they make up for somebody next to George Pickens, well, these might be the best options. Meanwhile, Alex Highsmith goes down with an injury, but Nick Herbig is a superstar in the waiting. There's some more injury news to jump on. And finally, where do we stand with the Pittsburgh Steelers after a 3-0 start? Has anything changed in the eyes of Noah Strackbein and Nick Belsky? It's a rainy one here, but to be totally honest, I was texting you yesterday. You were saying, hey, I wish I was at this game. And I said it was eerie in Pittsburgh. It was clouds, a little fog over the city. That's where Pittsburgh looks its best. If we're going to be honest, Pittsburgh is a beautiful city when it is eerie out, and you just kind of felt like yesterday was a hard-nosed, ground and pound, eerie football game. And I think today is an eerie victory Monday just to represent what yesterday was. How are you feeling, my friend? You feeling as good as Steelers Nation?
Oh, I'm feeling great. It's the first victory Monday of fall, so I'm glad we got our fall tones on. We got the memo for that one. But honestly, 20-10, the best the Steelers have looked, and it feels like it's been a long time since those preseason games where everybody was freaking out to where we are now, which they're undefeated and one of the few undefeated teams remaining in the AFC.
Yeah, it's wild to sit here and look at where the Pittsburgh Steelers are. And look, we could predict 3-0. You could predict the Pittsburgh Steelers were going to win certain games in certain ways. And I mean, you could do everything and you could talk all you want. Nobody saw this happening. Nobody saw Justin Fields being where we are currently today. Nobody saw Calvin Austin in the game that he had coming. Nobody saw the superstars emerging, or even if you had high hopes for the Steelers defense, I'm sorry, but they probably weren't this high. Overall, the Pittsburgh Steelers have just been a big ball of surprise and a good one in that. 20-10 win over the Los Angeles Chargers, a staple, a stamp on the let's knock off the nonsense. Let's stop talking about pretender or contender and just say it as it is. The Pittsburgh Steelers have won 3 games. They have gotten better each and every one of those games. And, well, right now, they look like a team that can beat, I don't want to say anybody, because anybody includes teams like the Kansas City Chiefs, teams like the San Francisco 49ers, teams like maybe the Minnesota Vikings. But they could probably go neck and neck, and I'm not going to sit here and say that they'd lose to Patrick Mahomes and company. I'm not going to sit here and say that they would lose to the Buffalo Bills or the San Francisco 49ers. I think 3-0, 20-10 win over the Los Angeles Chargers, in my mind, put them in a place where the Steelers, they're up there. And they are a team that other teams should be nervous about, and a team that if they just keep this train rolling, if this is the beginning, because this is, if we started here week 1, week 2, week 3, we're headed in a very dangerous spot for the Pittsburgh Steelers when it comes to the rest of the NFL. A 20-10 win that in my mind solidified all of the positive talk that people have put out there surrounding this team. We'll dive into where we stand later, but I want to ask first, you watched that game. Did you expect it to be, even in moments when the Chargers scored first and the defense looked a little bit sloppy early, were there any moments where you said, yeah, I don't know, man, this one might fall apart for Pittsburgh?
The one thing that surprised me is it became a passing game rather quickly. I mean, Najee Harris and Jaylen Warren didn't get going for the Steelers. J.K. Dobbins didn't get going for the LA Chargers. It was a game where I said, all right, well, if we're putting this into the hands of the quarterbacks, if Justin Herbert is looking as good as he's looking, that's going to be tough for the Steelers, because at the beginning of that game, he was looking really good and he was dicing up the Steelers and finding the soft spots. in the Steelers defense. But I think the one thing you saw, and I tweeted it out at halftime, adjustments. Can the Steelers make the adjustments like they did in week 1? They did, but in the first half, I was looking at it and I said they need to make some adjustments because this zone coverage against Justin Herbert right now is not working. He was finding this off really easy, and that was the first time that the Steelers defense looked human all season long. And fortunately for them, they shut that down rather quickly once halftime came around.
Yeah, I think that was the best part of yesterday, outside of Justin Fields in the offense, was the defense kind of got slapped in the face early. They got punched and they didn't back down. This wasn't a game where you had concerns. By the time it was over, there were no concerns about this defense. I mean, you gave up -5 yards in the second half. -5 yards in the second half. That is the craziest stat I have ever heard in my entire life. -5 yards in the second. I don't care who your offense is. I don't care who your quarterback is. You have J.K. Dobbins out there in an offense that was moving in the first half. Even when you lose your quarterback, you should still be able to get 1, maybe 2, -5 wild times. We'll start with the biggest topic of conversation. Actually, we'll start with an injury update because it's important to touch on the injury update. Troy Fautanu, who left practice on Friday, was placed on IR on Saturday, is now set to miss the regular season, according to NFL Network's Ian Rappaport. The rookie offensive tackle suffered a dislocated kneecap. He will miss the remainder of the regular season. Could come back in the playoffs if the Pittsburgh Steelers do make the playoffs, but not looking good for Troy Fautanu. That's okay. Broderick Jones looked really good yesterday, and I thought he stepped up big when he needed to step up. So the way I look at it is it's a tough one to lose for the Pittsburgh Steelers, but I'm glad that Broderick Jones responded accordingly, and I have little worry about where you go from here because, I mean, the offensive tackles, they looked okay. You got to call up John LeGlue. You'll probably sign him to the 53-man roster from what I'm hearing. Dylan Cook is set to miss an extended amount of time. We'll see where that happens. I'm sure roster moves will come in the upcoming days. Justin Fields finishes yesterday. Let me grab the stats here. 25 of 32, 245 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. And let me tell you 2 things here. One, I'm glad that he threw an interception yesterday. Very glad that he threw an interception yesterday because that was the conversation we were waiting for. If he didn't throw an interception yesterday and he continues to look perfect, we're sitting here talking about, okay, Justin Fields still hasn't turned the ball over, which is a major component to him staying the starter. Now we're talking about Justin Fields threw the ball or threw an interception, turned the ball over, responded with the best game of his Steelers career. Responded in a way that the Pittsburgh Steelers want him to respond. Didn't sink to the pressure. Didn't allow it to affect his next throw. He threw an interception and bounced back in extraordinary fashion. He finishes the game in a way that, look at, man, we could sit here and we talked about it last week. I said it and I made a bold claim and I'm glad I made it. I'm really glad I made it because last week I said Justin Fields put on the best half of football we've seen since Ben Roethlisberger retired. Yesterday was the best performance a quarterback has had in Pittsburgh since Big Ben has left, Mason Rudolph included. And I'm sorry, but the conversations of what if Russ is healthy, when Russ is healthy, the Steelers lucked themselves into a situation that they did not see coming. The Steelers dealt with the quarterback injury that could turn into something 10 times bigger than they ever believed in. And Justin Fields is reminding us that the NFL is a fickle person, is a fickle company. And yeah, sometimes you just need a change of environment. Sometimes you need an offensive coordinator that is willing to adapt and grow and do what you are good at doing. Sometimes you need an offensive line. Sometimes you need a head coach like Mike Tomlin, because I'm sorry, but Justin Fields and that confidence, I have a feeling it comes a lot from what Mike Tomlin has done for him and said to him. Sometimes you need George Pickens. Sometimes you need an offense that is surrounded with talent. And sometimes you need Calvin Austin. And I'm sorry, but Justin Fields did it all yesterday. I have no questions left about this guy. I don't care if he struggles next week, and I have a hard time believing he's going to. The way I look at this is Justin Fields is the starter today. He's the starter tomorrow, and he's the starter maybe for the next 10 years in Pittsburgh. That's what I saw yesterday, was a guy who, if I'm the Steelers, I'm not talking about this season anymore. I'm focused on next week, obviously, but I'm starting to think bigger picture. If I'm Omar Khan, I'm starting to see, when do we start to approach the thought of Justin Fields is here in 2025? Because that's what he did, is he showed that every week is a step forward. the Chargers were no joke. Let's not sit here and act like the Chargers were an easy win. They were the number one defense in the NFL. The number one defense in the NFL coming into week 3. He did what he did. There were accurate throws. There were good decisions. There was no moments where you sat there and thought, even with an interception, Justin Fields was taking a step backwards. It was a massive step forward. Justin Fields is the Steelers quarterback 1 today, tomorrow, and probably for the future. And I think it's time to start having the conversation of how big Justin Fields can get in Pittsburgh, because it's no longer a what if. He's showing it to us.
Yeah, I mentioned on Friday when you asked the question, what does he need to do to kind of solidify that job? And can he get to the point this week where he can solidify that as, hey, this is his job, whether Russ is healthy or not? And I said 3 things. I said, 1, win the game. Check. I said, 2, don't turn the ball over. He did that once, but as you mentioned, he bounced back. And this is why every time we're asked a question about, oh, well, what if he loses a game? Does he automatically? Well, it depends on what it looks like. What did that interception look like? He tried to fit the ball in. And if that ball deflects down instead of deflects up, it's probably an incomplete pass. But it was his response that I really liked. And what was the third thing I said? Get in the end zone twice. Ran it in once, passed it in a second time, and they left points out there. Field said it. I mean, Najee Harris went down at the 1 to preserve the under. He is a big under better guy. So,
shout out Najee Harris, man. I had the under at 36.5, and I didn't even notice until he went down and they took the knee, and I went, oh my gosh, that was it. It hit. Beautiful. Justin Herbert under 2, 135. He left the game at 125. So, not as happy about that one, but still great day for Noah Strackbine.
But at the end of the day, he checked all 3 boxes to me. Even though he turned the ball over, he did throw that interception. He responded really, really well. And honestly, he responded and he looked just as good as he did in the first half. I thought that he was good, especially because it's not what you would expect Justin Fields to have to do to be good in a football game. I'm not going to go as far to say as he was a pocket passer, because he wasn't. They were moving the pocket. He was using his legs. He was using his athletic ability, but he had 8, 9 rushing yards. They're not counting on him to be the entire offense with his legs. They're allowing him to be the offense with his arm, and he looked really good doing it yesterday. So to me, this was a performance that stamped, it is his job. I agree with you. Today, tomorrow, and the rest of this season. And then obviously you have those conversations when you have them, but it looks like they do have something. Again, let's see how the next 16 weeks play out, but I think that this is his job until it's not anymore, and it's up to him to lose it.
Yeah, and I honestly, we'll bring up Michael's thing here. I don't know how you not have Justin Fields as your quarterback 1 moving forward, improving each game, taking away a fluky interception, and he's turnover free, passes to Pickens and Pat Freiermuth on drives at the end of the first half, which his pass to George Pickens, that was, the Steelers haven't had that in a while. They haven't had the quarterback that at the end of the first half with 20 seconds left in the second quarter, you could say, yeah, screw it. Let's throw the football. Let's see what happens, because we can do that. We have faith in our offense and our defense. He went through all of his reads. I will say the interception, I know that it was fluky. It's still on him. That's a tight window to throw that football, and maybe it was a good move, and he's got the arm strength to make that throw. Don't get me wrong, but you're still going to put that. If Tom Brady threw that interception, that's on him. You threw it into a tight window. Even if it got deflected, you threw that football. But I agree with you. I don't think you can make a change moving forward. And I just don't. I think it would be such a disastrous downfall before Justin Fields loses this job, because where he stands, the pedestal is high. And when you're talking about a 25-year-old, a first-round pick, 11th overall, this is a guy that the Steelers would never in their life dream of getting their hands on, ever. And he has ended up in Pittsburgh. I don't believe the conversation anymore is who gives us the best opportunity to win a Super Bowl this year, because I think Justin Fields is that answer. And I believe that you're now focused on Justin Fields can win us a Super Bowl this year. Justin Fields might be able to win us Super Bowls in years coming as well. And that's why it has to be a disastrous fall off for Justin Fields to make that fall and to lose that job. Do you expect Mike Tomlin to name him the starter for the rest of the season? Do you think that conversation finally happens where Mike Tomlin gets kind of honest with us?
Well, Mike Tomlin and honest in the same sentence is a hard one to swallow. So I don't think that I don't think that he's going to walk out on Tuesday and say, you know what, until further notice, Justin's our guy, especially because of the circumstance, right? He can go out there and say, well, Russell's still not available to us, so he can
Yeah.
cut and paste the same thing he said the last 2 weeks, and he'll probably say it again. But I've given up on trying to predict what Mike Tomlin is going to say, because he's certainly not going to tell the truth, and I think he'll say whatever suits him best. And right now, it doesn't suit him best, especially with Russell not looking like he was close to ready last week. It doesn't suit him to come out and say, yeah, even if Russell was healthy, we're still going to go with Justin until the day comes when Russell is healthy.
Yeah, I don't disagree, but I do think internally he's already made his decision. I think he made his decision when he let Justin Fields throw a 20-yard pass to George Pickens along the sideline with 19 seconds left in the second quarter. I think that's when Mike Tomlin said, yeah, we're here, man. This is it. This is your offense. Let's go win games. And to be honest, Arthur Smith has designed an offense. At the beginning of this game, it was like, okay, what's going on? And I don't know what it was, but at some point you just kind of felt like Arthur Smith was like, Mike, can I just do this? Can I just play this game the way I think Justin should play this game and use the guys that I think we should use? And I mean, it worked out, which leads us to topic number 2, Calvin Austin, Scotty Miller, 2 guys that nobody saw coming, 2 guys that we were giving up on very, very quickly. But Van Jefferson goes down with an eye injury. Calvin Austin finishes the game with 4 receptions, 95 yards, and a 55-yard touchdown. And Scotty Miller, 2 receptions, 31 yards, including a third down play that, I mean, saved the Steelers' drive and ended up scoring their first touchdown with Justin Fields prancing into the end zone. Am I crazy to say Calvin Austin is wide receiver 2 right now? And am I even crazier to say that the Pittsburgh Steelers' best offense might include Scotty Miller and Cordero Patterson over Van Jefferson?
I wouldn't say that I wouldn't crown Calvin Austin just yet. I loved the game, breakout performance. He had 95 yards and a touchdown. Of course, 55 of that came on the touchdown reception, but he was having a good game before that. He was getting open. He was making big plays. He was making big catches. The one sideline catch to get them closer into field goal range right before the half was great. I wouldn't say that I'd crown him yet, simply because the way I look at the Steelers offense, they need stuff incrementally from players not named George Pickens. This week, it was Calvin Austin. Next week, it might be Pat Freiermuth. The week after that, it might be Roman Wilson. They just need guys, when their number is called, step up. They don't need anybody to be that bona fide number 2, but they need somebody who, whenever George is taken out of the game or whenever all the attention's on George, you can get open, and when the ball comes your direction, make something happen with it. Calvin Austin did that yesterday. I don't see Van Jefferson as somebody that through 2 weeks was able to do that. So I would put Austin and Scotty Miller ahead of Jefferson going forward, simply because I don't think Jefferson has that in him. When the number is called, he elevates his game. I think Austin is young and has that potential. Wilson has that same potential, and Scotty Miller yesterday showed that in a pinch, he can make a big play.
Look, I agree. And I agree with the sentiment that the Steelers wide receiver 2 could be a shared duty, that on a week-to-week things can change. I also agree that Scotty Miller and Roman Wilson should be getting shots over Van Jefferson, because right now Arthur Smith's offense is designed for these gadget guys. And he made that, like, you saw that yesterday. You saw George catch the balls down the field. You saw George do what George does best, which was win one-on-one battles at all times. But the rest of this offense is designed for guys with speed to catch the football and make plays. Justin Fields was putting it into windows 10, 15 yards down the field to guys who should catch the football and make plays. Pat Freiermuth included. It was the same design. It was catch the football, turn around, and see what you could do with it. And that's Scotty Miller. That's Calvin Austin. That's Roman Wilson's game. And I think it works very well. Calvin Austin yesterday didn't just put himself on the map, but showed the Pittsburgh Steelers, like we were talking going into this game, it's now time to start thinking about wide receivers. And I had conversations before the game about how the Steelers will likely approach a wide receiver in the next couple of days. I think those conversations have now been put on hold. I think now Omar's and Mike Tomlin are talking about, let's just wait it out. There's no need to make harsh moves right now when Pat Freiermuth is just getting started. Calvin Austin finally showed us what he can do, and maybe we got something in this guy named Scotty Miller. And let's not ignore that Cordero Patterson was involved as well. I mean, he had a game. He was there. He was making plays. He was fired up That dude brought so much energy to that offense. It was awesome to watch. That's a veteran right there. And if you saw Cordero Patterson, you'd be like, you are not a running back. You're massive. You are a massive human being. I mean, running back / short yardage wide receiver is a fantastic role for a gadget guy. I mean, those two, they're studs. The Steelers have weapons, and that's wild to say that the Steelers have weapons, because 7 days ago we were talking about how the Steelers have nothing, and all it took was an eye injury to say, "Yeah, man, maybe they got something. Maybe they got something." Let's answer this one real quick, because it does jump into the wide receiver position here. Why do you think the Steelers made Roman Wilson inactive for this game? I think simply it was because he was not ready. He's healthy, but he needs time to learn the offense, find a role. He's going to have to earn his place. That's a classic Steelers move. Now, that being said, I would imagine he's active next week, because I would imagine the Steelers are thinking, okay, Calvin Austin and Scotty Miller are doing this. I would imagine Roman Wilson could do it too, and maybe he could do it better. So let's get him involved as well. I think Roman's there next week. This week doesn't surprise me that he was not. All right, when we come back, we'll jump to the other side of the ball. The Steelers have another superstar, and I was told in OTAs that this guy was going to be a superstar, and he has lived up to every single piece that we have thought he would. And where do we stand with the Pittsburgh Steelers heading into week 4? All that plus more on the other side of this break. It's football season, and we've teamed up with DraftKings. Right now, you can get involved in even more action with DraftKings Pick6, a brand new way to play daily fantasy sports. And the best part, all new customers who play $5 will get $50 in Pick6 credits. All you have to do is download the DraftKings Pick6 app now. Sign up with our code ALLSTEELERS and get kicking. Only on DraftKings Pick6, the crown is yours. Getting started is simple. Just download the DraftKings Pick6 app and sign up with our code ALLSTEELERS. From there, just pick at least 2 players and choose if they'll have more or less of a stat. Lock them in and compete against others for a shot at a huge cash prize. Download the DraftKings Pick6 app now and sign up with our code ALLSTEELERS only on DraftKings Pick6. The crown is yours. Shout out our boys over at DraftKings. Won a couple of bets yesterday. I was pumped about winning. It's been a long 3 weeks of not winning any bets. Won a couple of bets yesterday. Shout out to our boys over at DraftKings. Also, shout out to our boys over at DraftKings. Did I ever tell you the Rodney Williams story? I know I'm getting off topic, but
you mentioned it Friday.
Did I mention it Friday? Was going to do it again
about Rodney Williams.
Was going to do it again, and they didn't put him on there. They didn't put him on there. I think a Scotty Miller touchdown, though, had better odds or crazier odds than no team to score a touchdown throughout this entire game. Darnell Washington, too. Wild times. Shout out to Lifted Ones here. Do you guys remember I called Nick Herbig being an X factor with 2 sacks, 1 being a strip sack? I can't say I'm surprised. Nick, you texted me that in the middle of the game. You said, shout out to Lifted Ones. Wild that you called that one, but props where props are due here. The Pittsburgh Steelers found themselves a stud in Nick Herbig. I talked to Minkah Fitzpatrick yesterday, and while I had the quote up, I lost the quote. But Nick Herbig finishes with 2 sacks, 1 strip sack, 3 tackles, steps in for Alex Highsmith, who's dealing with the groin injury. And from what I've been told and from what I saw, I don't believe the groin injury is a good one. I mean, Highsmith was visibly frustrated walking off the field to go to the medical tent, and then came out of the tent. I don't know what he had in his hand, whether that was just gloves or something else, but threw it on the ground as hard as possible. Was in clear aggravation, which you can't blame him. You know, week 3 to suffer an injury, nobody is happy about that. But from what I have been told afterwards is that it's not the best scenario. It's not the best situation for a guy in Alex Highsmith. Meanwhile, I asked Minkah Fitzpatrick after the game, I said, is Nick Herbig, does this surprise you at all? Does any of this surprise you? I mean, I asked Terrell Austin during OTAs, is Nick Herbig already showing you that he's a second-year leap superstar type of guy? And he said yes. This is what Minkah had to say. Quote, Herbig's a great player. If he was anywhere else, he'd probably be starting and playing at a high level. Obviously, he has 2 great all-pro pass rushers in front of him and does a great job of when he comes in, plays at a high level. Alex got hurt, next man up, and he went out there and he did what he did. Nick Herbig is a superstar I want to say in the making, but he might have already been made. It's impossible not to succeed in my eyes when you are learning from TJ Watt, Alex Highsmith, most likely JJ Watt at some time from time to time, because if you're training with TJ, chances are JJ's at least showing up and saying something, saying one or two things, giving you one or two little tidbits of advice there. Your thoughts on Herbig and a absolutely wild game from the second year outside linebacker?
Yeah, before that, I just, you mentioned influences. Don't discount Marcus Golden, the year that he had
True.
with Herbig last year. I think that
True.
went a long way as well, especially because when Herbig was out there, a lot of the times it was alongside Marcus Golden. So you got to shout out Golden as well. Happy retirement to him. But Herbig was an animal. And the second he had that first strip sack, I thought, well, somebody asked about that. So I started scrubbing through Friday, and I did find a lifted ones thing. And he said, oh, two. And then as soon as he got the second one, I was like, yep, send a note. We got to bring this up. But he was an absolute animal yesterday. They couldn't handle him. And honestly, the biggest thing and the biggest impact to me was because he got around the edge and did that twice. That opened up the opportunity for them to say, all right, well, we need to start worrying about him as well. That gave TJ Watt the one-on-one with Joe Alt, where he absolutely blew past him and blew up Taylor Heineke on the huge third down after the Renegade drive. Yep. So Nick Herbig not only able to kind of eat for himself, but also create some opportunities for TJ Watt, which is, once you're doing that, you're a made man in Pittsburgh. Once you need to get some attention put on you because they can't leave you one-on-one, they need to have people chip you as well. That's when this is a guy that is going to be a problem for other teams, because it puts them in that scenario that Highsmith has been doing for the last couple of years of, well, we can put all of our focus on TJ. And then maybe the interior offensive line, all the focus on Cam. But the problem is they have this guy on the other side that is going to just ruin the game if we don't put enough focus on him as well. Herbig is starting to get into that category, which is massive for the Steelers, especially with the Highsmith injury.
Yeah, I agree. And did you mention the first half, the Hail Mary by Herbert? He nearly had a sack on the Hail Mary by Herbert too. He got past there. True. He went to hit it, and Herbert hung on to the ball. He didn't go for the sack. He went for the strip. I mean, great play. That's what you're looking for there, is to, sack would be awesome, but let's get the ball back and see if we could score. If TJ Watt could run one in, or whoever could pick that ball up and see if they could get some yards there. Herbig he's a monster. He's a dude that, I mean, we said it all summer long from OTAs on. Nick Herbig looks like a beast. Nick Herbig took the biggest jump from year one to year two. And I don't even know if that's true, because Joey Porter Jr. is a lockdown corner right now. I get that, one touchdown, but it wasn't even his side for starters. And I talked to Minka. It was just miscommunication. But either way, he said that to a degree, like, the offense just called a play that might have been unstoppable. And you have, I mean, Spencer Anderson's making a jump. Broderick Jones looked good yesterday. There are Keanu Benton is being Keanu Benton. Nick Herbig's not even in the conversation of the best second-year player, but that's just because the Steelers have such a phenomenal group of second-year players that are all stars. Nick Herbig is a stud. Nate Herbig told us 2 years ago, I remember sitting in that press conference thinking, I don't even know who Nick Herbig is, man. But I have to go watch tape, because all I've heard for the past 20 minutes is that this dude is a stud. Well, Nate, you did good. And I think the Steelers should possibly toss you a little compensation for just a recruiting fee here for what you did for them, because Nick Herbig, he is an absolute stud. And I'm okay. Like, Alex Highsmith missing time stinks, but Minka's spot on. This team would be a starter on 31 of 32 teams, depending on who's in front of him, because Alex Highsmith and TJ Watt are as good as they get. All right, last thing I want to talk about before we answer all of your questions here. Has your stance changed on the Pittsburgh Steelers? 3-0. You had them 2-1 sitting here coming into week 4. Justin Fields is the quarterback and looks to be the quarterback for a long time. And the defense might be the best defense in football. They just beat the best defense in football and proved to be better than them then. Has your stance changed on where the Pittsburgh Steelers could be in 2024?
Yes, and part of that is because of how good the Steelers have been. Part of that has been looking around the AFC North. I'm not going to say the NFL because the NFL has been on something crazy so far through 3 weeks, but looking around the AFC North, a rough start for the Bengals. Happens a lot, but a rough start for the Bengals. A rough start for the Ravens. They got to win, but they almost blew it yesterday. And then a loss by the Browns to the New York Giants at home. I mean, I'm looking at this and I'm saying the Steelers right now are far and away the best team playing in the AFC North. And a lot of these games are non-AFC North matchups where the Steelers play their best. So even if the Ravens heat up, the Steelers play their best against the Baltimore Ravens. So I'm looking at this and I'm saying there's no way I'm not picking the Steelers right now as the favorite in the AFC North based on what we've seen and based on where everybody's positioned, because the defense is, as expected, if not better than expected. And the offense, they've started to answer some questions and answer them in a big way. The biggest one being number 2 behind center, because the center has been pretty good as well. Zach Frazier, we can also mention that, but number 2 has been one of the biggest surprises and also has been, I think, a lot better than a lot of us expected and is continuing to get better. We don't know where the ceiling is because he has not shown anything close to it yet.
Yeah, I agree. And you want to talk Ravens? I mean, they look like the only team in the AFC North besides the Steelers that are doing anything. We'll see Cincinnati, but even yesterday, they nearly lost that one. I don't know if they deserve to win that one because Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson looked great, but that defense is a massive question mark. And you got a new defensive coordinator. I don't know if he's playing that well, or I don't know if he's coaching that well. I don't know if Trenton Simpson's the man that's going to replace Patrick Queen, excuse me. I just don't know if they have it. And they don't strike fear in me when it comes to the Pittsburgh Steelers. My stance is pretty much aligned with yours. Like right now, I did the power rankings for on SI last night. I was sitting in bed. I put the Steelers 4th. I had the Steelers as the 4th best team in the NFL right now. And I'm not saying they are going to finish as the 4th best team in the NFL right now, but I have a hard time saying that the Philadelphia Eagles, the Detroit Lions, all the teams that I thought would have been 5-6, I have a hard time saying they're better than them. The Steelers look like a team that could beat almost anybody, and I would put them up against anybody. So yeah, where I stand, it's definitely changed. I see them as champions of the AFC North. I got a hard time thinking they're going to lose it at this point, unless that second half beats them. But just talking second half, I think that second half, there's a shot. I think that second half, there's a shot they go to Philly and win. I think that second half, there's a shot they host the Kansas City Chiefs on Christmas, and it's a good Christmas for the Yins. I look at this team and say the ceiling is 10 times higher than what it was. And we talked playoff win. I think we should be talking playoff wins, depending on how healthy they are come week 19, because that's what's going to determine a lot of this. But if they stay healthy, knock on wood, this team's dangerous. I say contenders for sure, and contenders that are getting more dangerous by the day. All right. Let's dive into all of your questions as we do every single day. I know we got some bangers, but first, let's hear a word from our boys over at Mando. My guys, you ever lift just a little too hard and forget to apply that daily deodorant only to get hit by a truckload of BO later in the day? Well, does that 3-in-1 shampoo ever leave you needing a second shower? Here we go. From the founders of Lumi, Mando Whole Body Deodorant is helping men conquer their odor in a new way. Formulated with mandelic acid, Mando has long-lasting 72-hour odor control that actually stops odor before it starts. And the best part is you can put Mando everywhere. Pits, packages, feet, skin folds, backs of knees, everywhere. To top it off, Mando's cologne quality scents are created with men in mind. And well, I'll give you a pro tip. Try their best-selling scent, Bourbon Leather. It's an absolute game changer. I will tell you that I got the package. My wife immediately goes, I could smell that box from over here. And I won't lie to you. I opened it up. I haven't turned back since. I only use Mando from here on out. Let me tell you about the Mando Starter Pack. It's the perfect thing for new customers. It comes with a solid stick of deodorant, cream tube deodorant, 2 free products of your choice, like the mini body wash and deodorant wipes, and free shipping. Luckily, I have a discount code to help you get hooked up on your favorite smelling body deodorant on the market. New customers get $5 off a starter pack with our exclusive code. That equates to over 40% off your starter pack. Just use the code ALLSTEELERS at shopmando.com. That's SHOP mando.com. It's time to smell better naked. Your partner will thank you. Shout out, Mando. I've been using that every day. If we're gonna be honest, every single day. I'm a big body wash guy. You know, I'll if I'm, you know how like people smoke cigars and they get to like, you know, this much of a cigar left, and they like, you get the people that are like, I'm done. That's how I am with body soap, where like once it gets to the point where I'm like, I don't have a firm grip on this, we're switching body soaps. And I've gone straight Mando since Mando sent me a great box of good smelling stuff. Plus, I mean, that the mail truck had to smell delicious the entire time. All right.
Yeah, I was going to say they sent that starter pack that you can save some money on, and there is plenty of options whenever you get that starter pack.
Many. I didn't know, because we just, you know, the conversation is you're going to get a box. Okay, cool. I didn't realize how many different types of deodorant a person can use. I use them all. I smell delicious at all times. So shout out to Mando. All right, let's dive into some questions. I know we got some good ones. It's a Victory Monday, and Steelers Nation is rocking. If you guys have more, toss them in the chat. We'll make sure to answer all of them before we head out of here. What do we got?
Yeah, let's jump down to Steven to start things off. Appreciate you as always. Steven says, have they entered a multi-year Super Bowl window?
Yes, they have. We talked about this in the early spring, before OTAs, before even maybe during free agency, how the Pittsburgh Steelers Super Bowl window, we might have talked about this a year ago. The Pittsburgh Steelers Super Bowl window opened once they got a quarterback. Once they figured out the quarterback situation, everything else was built for the next few years. They have a defense that is still paid, and you have 2 years left before you got to start repaying everybody, but you could figure that out. You have an offense with a young wide receiver who's a superstar, a running game with an offensive line that is here for years to come, and a head coach that wins football games. The window is open, my friend, and it's open this year, and it's open next year, and it's open as long as Justin Fields and this defense continue to play as good as they have played, because the Steelers are a contender right now for sure.
Let's go over to James Reese, who says, happy Victory Monday, everybody. Who would you say had the biggest breakout game this week? Is it Patterson, Herbig, or Calvin Austin III?
Calvin Austin. I mean, Herbig's there, but almost expected that Herbig was going to be as good as he could be once he got an opportunity. Calvin Austin was a guy we were giving up on. I'm sure glad we don't have to give up on him, because Calvin Austin's the best dude in that locker room, hands down. He's one of the hardest workers on the Pittsburgh Steelers roster, and to have a game like that was needed, and that was deserved. So shout out to Calvin Austin. I would say Calvin Austin.
Let's go over to Peter, who says, so how much money are you giving to Justin this offseason?
Oh, that's a tough question. It's early for that question. We could see, I saw hypotheticals all throughout the chat today, 4 years, $100 million, $25 million a year. It's early for that question. Week 3 right now, you're still giving them a low-end deal with a good second year to try and juice things up. By the end of the season, you make the playoffs, you win the AFC North, you win a couple of playoff games with Justin Fields, you're talking money. You're talking real money. And maybe the first year is still a $25 million-ish deal, but year 2 is probably like 40. And that's okay, because that's what a quarterback costs. And if the Steelers have one, you pay one. But right now, I would say it's early to know what that number will be.
Marlon says, do you think we're going to be like the 2023 Lions team with our youth? I think we can be good for a while.
Yeah, I do. I mean, the biggest thing with the Steelers is all of the veterans who are signed have deals that expire within like the next 3 years. So you got to re-sign guys like TJ Watt, Minka Fitzpatrick, Patrick Queen at one point, Larry Ogunjobi, Alex Highsmith eventually, which, I mean, at this point, you don't know what's going to go on there. Dante Jackson, Deshaun, the whole crew. That being said, if you could do that, this team is great. And on the offensive side of the ball, you don't have contracts. So you're in an even better situation. I would say, yes, they are looking like a hard-nosed 2023 Lions team.
Marlon has a second question here that is, I didn't hear them bring Broderick up very much, but did he have a decent game? I figured it was better because no one is freaking out.
Yeah, I mean, Broderick had a great game. At one point, I highlighted a question or a statement about him pancaking Joey Bosa. Broderick stepped up in a big way. He was motivated, and even when Bosa was on the field, he was not letting him do anything. And then when Bosa left, he was not letting anybody do anything. So I would say Broderick stepped up. It's a 1-game sample size. You're going to need more of them, but it was a good start for a guy who was trying to redeem himself.
Let's go over to James Reese, who says, with Russ having a no trade clause, if someone like Darnold went down on a contending team, do you think Russ would ask for a trade with Fields playing this good?
Not right now, not today. In a couple of weeks, yes. Near the trade deadline, yes. But right now, I believe that Russell Wilson still thinks that there are opportunities for him to see the field this season in Pittsburgh, which there probably are. It's still early, and in my eyes, you don't turn the clock back. You don't go to Russ again, but you also could be wrong. Week 4 could be a blowout. Week 5 could be a blowout. The Steelers could completely crumble, which, I mean, I don't think is likely, but you never say never in the NFL. And in the words of Mike Tomlin, you certainly never say never. But if they don't, and you get to week 7, week 6, week 8, and the Vikings need a quarterback, the Lions need a quarterback, anybody who's good needs a quarterback. Yeah, I could see the Steelers saying, hey, why not? But that trade has to be good, because they're not going to give up a quality backup, somebody that if they need him late in the season, he's available for nothing. It is going to have to be a deal that entices the Steelers.
Let's go over to Nate Moore, who says, what are your thoughts on Pickens' involvement in the offense in the first half? Seems like he's not a part of the game plan. How long until he's disgruntled?
No, he's definitely part of the game plan. I mean, what did he finished the game yesterday with 5 receptions for 57 yards. And I think that's what you're looking for right now, is an offense that is going to develop the ground game. He was playing a defense that tried as hard as they could to shut him out, and he still made plays. And Calvin Austin and Scotty Miller were making big plays. So I would not say I'm worried about George Pickens. I think he's playing well. Does he want more numbers? Yes, but I would say 57 yards this week is low only because the first 2 weeks of the season, it was a George Pickens show. And just because one team shut down George Pickens doesn't mean they all will. It'll kind of rotate and jump around from time to time. So I would just say by sample size, this is a lesser game for George, but not one that concerns me.
Yeah, I'll say 2 things about George Pickens yesterday. One, he had probably another 15 yards and a catch. He was dotted by Justin Fields on 3rd down early in the game, and that one just slipped through his hands. So that's, again,
true.
Good play by the defense. It was a contested ball, but that was right to George, and that would have added to his total. And secondly, I mentioned complimentary football earlier in the show when talking about Herbig and Watt and how it led to a Watt sack in the 3rd quarter.
Yep.
That 55-yard touchdown reception is because George Pickens had all of the attention on him, and Calvin just slid right behind him, wide open into the middle of the field. So I think Pickens sees that and knows that, hey, listen, even if I'm not getting the ball thrown to me right now, I'm the reason we are succeeding. And as long as that's the case, Pickens is going to be just fine.
Yeah, I agree. Pickens doesn't concern me right now.
Let's go over to Marlon Lewis, who says the Falcons and Broncos wins look even better after yesterday too, huh?
Look, and I'll say this. The Broncos win was impressive yesterday, but I also think Tampa Bay was due for fallout. I didn't trust that offense or that team nearly as much as everybody else did. Also, shout out to Mike Prizzuta, because we went through our bets before the game, and every single one of them lost. Every single one of them lost. He was sitting there saying, oh, I'm taking Tampa Bay because the Denver Broncos stink. I'm taking the Titans because Malik Willis stinks. I'm taking the Giants were the other one because the Giants stink. And so he took the Browns, and I was like, what do we do? Nobody stinks. Okay. We were wrong. But yeah, they do look better. The Falcons win looks good, but you have to take everything into context. And also I don't think you need to hype up these wins even more, because they just look better by the week, and the Steelers are good enough to say this is a good team beating good teams.
Let's go over to EMAC, who says, am I tripping, or did I see Mason McCormick at left tackle at one point yesterday?
Yeah, he was playing the jumbo tackle, and there were a lot of people saying, you got to start Mason McCormick. You got to start Mason McCormick. You got to start Mason McCormick. You don't start Mason McCormick. His tape yesterday was sporadic at best. And I mean, there was a moment, if you go back and watch it, where he blocks Dan Moore. And all the effort in the world is there, but he's blocking his own guy. So I think he played well for the circumstance that he's in. But yes, you did see him playing some tackle. That'll probably happen until they call up John LeGlue or figure out their offensive line situation without Troy Fautanu. But the way we stand here right now, Spencer Anderson is the starter. McCormick will be a little bit of everything, I guess.
Yeah, one of the funniest moments from yesterday was seeing McCormick in between plays walk up to the ref and just poke him on the shoulder and be like, I'm eligible. And I was like, just the gentle tap on the shoulder of the ref got me. It got me.
North Dakota guy. Guy.
Let's go over to Delusional T412, excuse me, who says, how is this game different if Joe Alt and Herbert end up playing the full game?
I don't think it is. I really don't think it is. I mean, Herbig beat a backup left tackle on the second sack, I believe, but the first one was against Joe Alt. I'm almost positive. And Herbert wasn't. I mean, Herbert looked fine, but the Steelers offense was playing better, and I just don't think he was going to be able to hold up. So I don't see it going any differently. I see the Chargers maybe being a bit more of a threat, but I don't know how many more yards you're picking up when the Steelers allow -5 yards and a half. So, I mean, maybe a little bit of a boost for the Chargers. The Steelers still walk away winners.
Yeah, and Joe Alt went out late, so he was out. By the time he went out, the game was already decided.
Yeah.
Let's go over to Steven, who wants to know, can we have a segment where we post our craziest Steeler parlay hits?
Oh, yeah. I'm all about that life. You want to toss them in the chat, dude? We'll recognize them all the time. I will always recognize a wild parlay that goes off. So, yes. The answer is yes. The easy answer is yes.
Let's go over to Eli Shelton, who says, do you think Warren is going on IR? I certainly hope not.
No, I don't think so. I mean, yesterday was, maybe a bit of a hiccup. I could see the Steelers kind of holding him back, not really utilizing him for the next couple of weeks. That's how I see Jaylen Warren's season going, but I don't, there's no point or no part of me that thinks he's going on IR right now where we stand.
Let's go over to Nathan, who says, hey guys, been watching for a while, but this is my first time making it live. I think based on how the Steelers have been playing and the Chiefs, they have a real shot to win on Christmas. Do you agree?
Yeah, I do. No, we just talked about that. I do. I think Philly, I think Kansas City, I think all the Baltimore, Cleveland, and the Cincy games, they're all real right now, the way the Steelers are playing.
Steven wants to know, with a defensive line like ours, who do teams double cover now? I also counted about 15 holds on TJ that were not called.
TJ is never going to get a holding call. I think he and everybody else accepts that right now. Who gets double cover? I don't think anybody does. They were double covering TJ, that he got the sack. They're late in double coverage, but Herbig continues there. It's going to be TJ. It's always going to be TJ, but it's just going to leave more opportunities for everybody else.
Sam wants to know, do you think the Steelers get a shutout at all this year? -5 yards in the second half is crazy.
I predicted a shutout in this one, and I think it would have happened if Justin Herbert did not play. I think I would have been spot on that call if Justin Herbert did not play, actually. I don't know. I don't know. I don't believe that's necessarily on them compared to who they're playing. Maybe the Giants, maybe the Commanders. There's some games that there's a possibility, but it's tough to get a shutout in the NFL.
Let's go down to Egg Salad, since he jumped in here. Said, did I miss something? Did Warren leave with another injury? Just a clarification on that.
Same injury. Tomlin just saw, a bit of a limp in him and decided to pull him. That's where we stand with it. It's going to be a long road for Jaylen Warren. Hamstrings are tough in the NFL. They're tougher at running back. So the way I look at this is it's going to be a slow return for this guy. They want him healthy for the playoffs. It doesn't mean that he's more injured. It just means that it's tough to come back from this. It's going to linger. The Steelers want to avoid making it worse.
Let's go over to, speaking of hamstring injuries, how big is the Corey Trice hamstring injury and how long will he be out, if you have any idea?
Don't know yet. We'll find out more probably today and tomorrow. That there's testing that'll need to be done today, MRIs and that kind of stuff. So I would imagine later this afternoon, tomorrow morning is when we get some clarity on him, Alex Highsmith, etc.
Let's go over to Chad, who says, will Calvin Austin get more opportunities on the outside? His speed opens up so much more and should be the wide receiver 2 over Van Jefferson.
Yeah, I mean, yes. The answer is yes. But Scotty Miller, too. Scotty Miller played the outside yesterday. He looked good. There were times Scotty Miller was the only wide receiver on the field, which was nuts to me, but it makes sense now. Yeah, I would say, yes, Calvin Austin could play the outside. He played almost exclusively the outside in college. So the answer there is yes.
Marlon's got another question here saying, are we seeing the growth of Mike Tomlin, or are the injuries the only reason some of these guys are in?
I think we're seeing the growth of Mike Tomlin. I think we're seeing the addition of Arthur Smith. I also think we're just seeing robust talent in Pittsburgh. There are a lot of names, too many names to keep off the field. So I would say it's a little bit of everything. The Steelers are just a loaded up team, and they're making the most of it.
Edgar wants to know, if Justin Fields wins 8+ games, will he be the most improved player of the year?
Oh, I don't know. Because you have Saquon Barkley. Yeah, most improved, I guess, probably. That would be. Do they do most improved in the NFL? Just
I
comeback,
don't
right?
believe so.
Yeah. I'm thinking comeback, which would probably be Saquon, possibly be Aaron Rodgers. So I would say no. Most improved potentially, though. Yeah.
Let's go over to the next question here. If Broderick continues to play like this, what do they do with Troy Fautanu once he's back?
He's not going to be back during the regular season, so you'll handle that next year. Kind of comes down to how good Broderick is. Troy Fautano's still the guy. So is Dan Moore worth another contract next year? That's going to answer that question. I don't know. I don't know how they approach it. I think it's way too early to tell, but I'm not worried that Troy's going to lose his job or never start for the Steelers or be a bust or be any of that. I still think him and Broderick are the future.
Mr. Solderboy wants to know, if the defense shows up every week like they have been, can you name one team that they can't compete with?
No, the answer right now is no. I mean, the Kansas City Chiefs are still the scariest team in football, but I'm not going to sit here and say that they're unbeatable. I don't think any team is unbeatable right now. I think the Steelers look good, and I think the Steelers match up with everybody defensively in the league.
Nathan King wants to know, can Najee earn his stay if he keeps playing like this, and will Warren be the running back that they part with after this offseason?
Najee is not most likely staying with the Steelers after this season. The better he plays, okay, so the circumstance with the Steelers and Najee Harris, I've said this 9 million times, and I will probably say it 9 million more times because it's just the way of the world. Najee's going to price himself out of Pittsburgh, or he's not going to be good enough to stay in Pittsburgh. Right now, it's trending where he's going to price himself out of Pittsburgh. And the Steelers, if they're thinking about signing Justin Fields, they ain't signing a running back too. So the way I look at it is they might part ways with both of these guys right now, but Najee is very slim chance he stays next season.
Let's go to the next question. When Highsmith does come back, how do you think they'll implement Nick Herbig?
I think it'll be a rotation. That's just as it was, but Herbig will probably get more reps. You'll probably see a couple of 3 outside linebackers. They're not going to take Highsmith off the field. That dude's a stud. So it'll just be a little bit more everybody, a little bit even split, try to keep some guys healthy.
Let's go over to No Coast Gaming, who says, happy Victory Monday, dudes. How big does Arthur open the playbook up now that Justin Fields is trending upward and the defense is playing so well?
I think it remains, a gradual increase, but this past week was definitely more than we've seen, and maybe that's where they sit for right now, and then they open up more as time goes on. Don't fix what's not broken. The Steelers are playing well, and they look good as they grow. So I would say it's a gradual increase, but one that, maybe you won't see massive jumps from week to week. It'll be, hey, this is working now, and then when it's starting to slow up, we'll add some more.
Let's go over to DC TV, who says, with our wide receivers stepping up, where does Roman Wilson fit this week?
I don't know if he does. He's got to earn his place on the field. That's a Steelers thing. That has always been a Steelers thing. It doesn't matter when you were drafted. You have to earn your place in Pittsburgh and within this roster. So he's got to continue to grind and show that he's ready to play in the NFL. And, that's going to take some time. So I don't know where he fits moving forward. I imagine he eventually fits in there and plays significant snaps, but it's going to be a slow roll to start with, at least.
Let's go over to Lifted Ones, who says, what did you guys think of the pre-show interview with TJ and JJ? I thought that interview was golden.
Yeah, that was awesome. That was awesome. JJ's killing it as a broadcaster, and TJ's always fun when he shows his personality, which really only happens with JJ. But yeah, it was cool. It was awesome.
Raymond wants to know, is Aaron Rodgers and the Jets with that defense the toughest challenge pre-bye over Dallas now?
Yeah, definitely. Dallas stinks. Aaron Rodgers looks good. The Patriots don't look good, so you have to question that. But I would say easy. It's Aaron Rodgers and the Jets before the bye week.
Christian wants to know, who is the Steelers' real first test for the season?
It was the Chargers. Now it'll probably be, I think the Raiders aren't terrible. They look terrible, but I don't think they're terrible. I would say it's the Jets. The Jets are a big challenge.
Let's go to DeAndre, who is very adamant that the Steelers should trade for DJ Moore.
Yeah, this one, I mean, yeah, I appreciate it. I caught it like 30 times in the chat. If you toss it in once, I promise you will get it. The Steelers, I don't think they're going to trade for DJ Moore. DJ Moore is expensive. The way I look at it right now is the Steelers are going to stick with the wide receivers that they have and see how good they can possibly be later. If they feel they aren't, or if they regress, let's say they regress, then you could open up the trade window again after week 3. I bet you Tomlin is feeling pretty good about the group that he has.
And the ink is still not dry on his $100 million contract in Chicago.
Yeah, like
so
he's too expensive. He's too expensive.
That, and I don't think Chicago would be willing to be like, yeah, you know what? 2 months later, after
I think they would. I think they would.
Really?
If we're gonna be, I think they'd clean house right now if they could. I think they're. I bet you Eberflus gets fired after the season, and half of that team is gone for draft picks, and Caleb Williams is the next guy that's gonna live a long, terrible 4 years in Chicago.
Ooh, and on that note, let's go over to Baby, who wants to know, if the Steelers were to make a trade before the deadline, who do you think it would be and why?
I'm gonna toss Devontae Adams out there. I think that would be a name to watch. He looks miserable in Vegas. Vegas looks like a miserable football team right now. I think he's gonna tell them eventually, get me out of here. And Pittsburgh might be the team to call. I'm not saying, I would say less than a 50% shot there, but I think it's less than a 50% shot they make a trade at all. That's just my guess.
Drake wants to know, do you believe the Steelers are a true contender this year for the championship? You've made that declaration before, but you want to put another stamp on it here?
Yeah. I mean, I think so, yes. I think they could beat anybody, or at least contend with anybody. The way they look right now is the offense is good. The defense is the best in football. And beating Patrick Mahomes and the San Francisco 49ers and the Buffalo Bills are not easy. They're way better when your defense can hold them to limited points, and I believe that they could.
Brioche said, are y'all twins? Which basically tells me it's time for me to shave.
It's time for me to possibly break out the mustache, but we'll see.
Let's jump down to Jason Purdy. Appreciate you as always. Says, thoughts on the young bucks on the offensive line. Mason, Zach, and Broderick looked great yesterday. And shout out to the Giants for exposing the Browns.
Yeah, I thought Zach's a monster. I thought Broderick looked good. I thought Spencer Anderson looked all right. And I thought Mason looked all right. I wouldn't say either of those guys look good, but they looked all right. But there's still growth there. And that's what you're looking for. Mid to late round picks who are very young. See what they got in them. See how far they can develop. I was a fan of everybody on that offensive line yesterday. I mean, Justin took, I think, 2 sacks. One of them I thought was his. One of them I thought was on the offensive line. But yeah, I thought all of them looked good. Zach Frazier's an absolute monster.
Let's go over to Nathan King, who says, this 2024 team's ceiling versus the Killer Bees teams at their peak, who are you taking?
It's different sides of the football. So the Killer Bees didn't have the best defense. The Steelers defense right now is 10 times what the Killer Bees defense was, but the Killer Bees offense was 10 times what this offense was. So look, at the end of the day, defense still wins championships. And I will never not say that, because it just proves the test of time and time again. The way I look at this is the ceiling might be a bit higher for this team just because of the defense. And the fact that they are backed into a wall with Mike Tomlin needing to win some playoff games. But it's hard to shut down Antonio Brown, Ben Roethlisberger, and Le'Veon Bell and say that they couldn't pull off something magnificent if they got another shot at it.
Let's go to Jay Chrome, who says, do you think they draft a quarterback or a wide receiver in the next year's draft?
I mean, where we stand right now, corner and defensive line, but wide receiver would go before quarterback. I don't think they're drafting a quarterback where we stand right now.
Let's finish it off with this one from Velocity Driven. Not a question as much as a statement that I think needs echoed. Great cast as always. Can we talk about how good Dante Jackson and Deshaun Elliott have been for the Steelers?
Yeah, absolute monsters. And I thought Dante Jackson played his worst of the 3 games yesterday, and I still think he had a good game. But Joey Porter Jr. is a monster. Deshaun Elliott's a monster. Minkah Fitzpatrick's a monster. And Beanie Bishop did some things yesterday that I was very impressed with. Very impressed with. He played holes very, very well. I just look at, they are great additions. They make this defense 10 times what it was. And the Steelers, I would be shocked if Dante Jackson isn't in Pittsburgh next year and Deshaun Elliott doesn't spend a long time in black and gold.
And for everybody that just stat watches, I hope they're happy with Patrick Queen. He led the team in tackles yesterday.
Dude,
So
Patrick Queen looked good yesterday. Right from the jump, Patrick
first
Queen.
play
You
of
could
the game.
tell, yeah, you could tell he was pissed off. You could tell he was hearing people call him out, and he was like, I'm done with this. He looked great yesterday.
That's a wrap for today then.
Awesome. With that said, guys, we are heading out of here. Thank you so much for jumping on to another episode of All Steelers Talk. Make sure to subscribe to us on YouTube, youtube.com/All Steelers Talk. Check us out anywhere you get your podcasts. And as always, find all of our work at si.com/NFL/Steelers. We will be back tomorrow to recap all of Tomlin Tuesdays. Most likely have some updates on some pressing injuries, and obviously discuss where the Pittsburgh Steelers go in week 4 against the Indianapolis Colts. It might be a gloomy one, but as always, enjoy another beautiful day in the Berg. Peace.